Hi, I'm Kim with Preservation Solutions, and we are the makers of Pentacryl, the stabilizer that prevents green wood from cracking and checking as it dries. And the video you're about to watch is the first in a three-part series on how to treat and dry and finish the ever-popular wood cookie. And what wood cookies are just the cross-cut section off the end of a log, and as many of you know, are very challenging to stabilize. So this video is based on the many questions and feedback we get from you, our customers. And it's just me candidly walking you through the treatment process, giving you additional tips and tricks on how to use Pentacryl successfully. So at the end of the three-part series, whether you're treating one cookie or 50 cookies, your cookies should end up looking more like this rather than like this, cracked. So the wood I'm using in this video came from a large aspen tree that was dying in my parents' yard and needed to come down. So it was the perfect opportunity for me to get a large quantity of fresh cut green wood to treat. And lastly, I want to take this opportunity to thank you, our customers. Whether you've been with us for many years or whether you're using Pentacryl for the first time, we are very grateful and thankful for all of you. So we love seeing photos and videos of your finished projects using Pentacryl, so please continue to send those to us. You can use the email address at the bottom of this screen. And again, thank you and happy woodworking. Okay, so we've got a nice chunk of tree from my parents' property, and this is about a 5-foot 14-inch diameter piece of aspen. This one's about a 4-foot 8-inch diameter. And then I also pulled one from our property, which is a nice lodgepole pine that was cut about a week ago. So I just wanted to show you that on these pieces, these were only cut 2 days ago, but look how quickly this is already starting to dry and crack. What happens on logs and wood in general, the end grain dries up to 90% quicker than the rest of the wood. So this is where our end grain sealer comes into play, and what I'm going to do is apply the sealer just to the ends of these, and it's a wax emulsion, so what it does is it dries nice and hard and it seals just this area. It doesn't penetrate it like Pentacryl does, it lays on the surface. So what it's going to do is help protect this wood and keep it from cracking any further, so we're not going to lose any more of this wood. Because I know that the mill's not going to be able to get to these for another week to cut them, so I just don't want any more cracking to occur. So we picked up our cookies from the mill. Again, a big shout out to Ryan at Where Wood Meets Steel for cutting these for us. And before we get started, I just wanted to show you that this is what it looks like. Remember when I painted the end grain of those logs and it was white? So this is what it looks like when it dries. It dries nice and clear, and it's like a wax emulsion. Now we're ready to go ahead and get our wood cookies treated, but first I want to just mention a few things. It's very important that the wood and the Pentacryl both be at room temperature when you're treating these. That way you get the best penetration. So what better area than our dry storage unit here in our warehouse to do that. So, and then second, I just wanted to show you on these fresh cut aspen logs, got our moisture meter here, that the reading is at least 40%. That's as high as my low moisture meter goes. So these are nice and wet. And then the reading on our lodgepole pine came back at like 38%. So those are also pretty high, and that's perfect because Pentacryl is made to treat green wood with a high moisture content. So the other thing is I had mentioned earlier that up to 80 to 90% of the drying in wood occurs through the end grain. And since cookies are 100% end grain on both sides, they're going to dry super quick. And the other thing about this type of cut has the most tension on it, so it's going to want to crack from the outside in towards the pith to relieve that tension. So that's just another reason to get these things treated in the Pentacryl as soon as you can after they're cut, so we can get them stabilized. So now we're ready to get our wood treated. Two keys to using Pentacryl successfully are to first completely saturate the wood. So we want the Pentacryl to go all the way through. And second is to dry the wood super slow, which we'll talk about later on in our video. So to get it saturated, there's two methods to do that as well. The first is to soak the wood, and that's the most efficient and the easiest because we know that the wood is going to absorb the Pentacryl all on its own. And then the second method is the brushing method. So first I'm going to show you the soaking method. We had like 50 wood cookies cut from our logs. So I did that on purpose so I could show you guys how to treat a lot of cookies at the same time. And what we did is we went down to Murdoch's and bought one of these 40-gallon, actually two of these 40-gallon stock tanks. And that'll hold quite a few cookies. As you can see, I've already got this one ready to go. And what I wanted to show you is you want to put some type of stickers on the bottom of your soak tank so that the wood isn't sitting directly on the plastic bottom. That way it can soak up through the bottom and through the top. So we want to use a plastic or fiberglass or rubber container, because if you use something metal, what'll happen is it'll react with the tannic acid in the wood and the metal, and it'll turn the wood dark. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and finish layering the wood cookies and the stickers in here, and then we'll get ready to pour the Pentacryl in. Okay, now that we've got all of our wood cookies positioned in our big tubs, I'm going to go ahead and pour the Pentacryl on. Obviously, since we have quite a few here, I'm going straight for the 5-gallon container. And the idea is to get all of them nice and saturated. So I tried to squeeze them in there best I could while still allowing space between them so that the Pentacryl can get in there. So we've got about 10 gallons of Pentacryl in each of our tanks, and as you can see, it's almost covered the tops of all of them. Ideally, that's what we want, is we want the Pentacryl to completely saturate the wood. So since there's some space in there, I just wanted to show you a little tip to help raise the level of the water. You can use some plastic jugs filled with water. In this case, we're using some of our old bottles that were dented that we can't use anyway. So I'm going to stick these in here. And what that'll do is help raise the level and cover the wood. You can also use rocks, put those in here to help raise this level. Just anything to kind of fill in the gaps. Bricks, those work well as well, so we'll stick those in those areas. So now we've got enough Pentacryl to cover the tops of our wood, and what I did is went ahead and covered the wood with plastic, and what that'll do is help the Pentacryl from evaporating off, and plus you know, just keep, if some wood does get exposed, it'll keep it from starting to dry and crack. And then another little tip, sometimes the wood will tend to float in the Pentacryl. If that's the case, you know, again, just put something heavy on there to keep those wood pieces down into the soak. And what we're going to do is we're going to let this soak for probably 3 days. Some of these pieces are 1.5 to 2.5 inches thick, and what we recommend is to soak 24 hours per inch of thickness. Of course, it's not going to hurt it to soak it longer, so we're going to give this a good 3 days to soak up. If you only have 1 or 2 pieces of wood to treat, what you can do is obviously use a smaller soak tank. We still have stickers under the bottom of these. So I poured just a quart in here, and as you can see, they're not completely submerged. But the nice thing about Pentacryl is it will wick up from the bottom. So what I'm going to do is let this sit overnight, and then I'm going to come back in the morning and turn these over and let it wick up from the bottom on the other side. And in the meantime, I'm going to cover them with plastic. Okay, so the second method to completely saturate your wood with the Pentacryl is to use the brushing method. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So what we did is obviously laid down plastic because it can be a little messy, and again put the stickers underneath it so it's not sitting directly on the plastic. And then the easiest way that I have found to do it is to take your Pentacryl and just pour a nice heavy coat in the middle, and then take your paintbrush and just spread it around. And as you can see, it soaks in pretty quickly, these first couple coats. So you want to get some nice generous coats on there. So again, I'll take this, spread it around. Now it's okay to get it on the bark. The bark's not going to shrink as much as the wood does. So the idea is to get as much into the wood as possible. So we've got a nice heavy coat on there. So we'll do that to each one of these and let it soak in. So I've applied about 1/3 of this gallon to all of these. I've already put one coat on, and by the time I got back to the first one, you can see it's already soaked in nice. So what I'm going to do now is just go ahead and put a second coat on each one, and then we'll let that soak in. Now that I've got 2 heavy coats of Pentacryl on all of the cookies, what we're going to do is let this sit overnight. I'm going to cover it with plastic so it can soak in. The idea is you don't want any exposed end grain to the air, so it can start drying before we're ready. So we're back. These have been soaking overnight, and our big soak tanks are doing really well. As you can see, these things are weighted down nicely and they're soaking it up. And then I wanted to show you this tub here that's got just our 2 pieces in it. And this is the one that I had explained was going to wick up. And as you can see, a lot of that Pentacryl's gone already from the bottom. So what I'm going to do is turn these over. And I don't know if you can see this here, these white bubbles. What that is the water that's being displaced. So that's how Pentacryl works, is it pushes that water out as it soaks into the wood, which is what we want. So I'm going to turn these over so it can also wick up from the other side. There's a lot of moisture on that one. So these are all fresh cut. Put those in there and let those soak up. Make sure they're getting right in the Pentacryl. So we'll let those soak up. I'm going to cover this back up so the top isn't exposed to the air and it doesn't start drying on us. And then over here, for cookies that we've been brushing on, as you can see, all of these had soaked it up really nicely. So what I'm going to do now is just apply another couple coats of the Pentacryl on here like we did yesterday. And again, we're just going to pour it on, which is the easiest way to get a lot on there. And then just take your paintbrush and spread it around. As you can see, it's soaking in even before I have a chance to get it all the way to the edge. So let's see how the pine cookie looks. See, look at that soaking in. So you can see the white on here as well. See that water that's being pushed out? That's exactly what we want. So I'll go ahead and put another coat on these and then we'll check back. So now it's been 2.5 days and I just thought I'd give you another update. So these ones are still doing great. We're going to let these soak at least another day. So that's perfect. They're doing everything they need to do on their own. And then I want to show you again, look how this is soaked up on its own as well. So this is probably saturated enough and ready to go, but what we're going to do is let it soak one more night so we can start drying them all together. And it's not going to hurt it to soak it longer, so we'll let them sit in there. And then now to our brushing ones. So what I've done is I've turned all of these over so we can treat the other side. I mean, you don't have to turn them over, but you can. It's quicker to treat it that way. If we were to just completely treat one side, the Pentacryl would eventually come through the bottom. So to speed things up, I've turned these all over, and we're going to go ahead and apply another 1 to 2 coats on this side. So I wanted to give you an idea as well on how much Pentacryl to use. I always get asked that a lot. What we do is we have a wood calculator on our website, and all you need to do is put in the diameter. So this is 9 inches, and the thickness, this is 2.5 inches. So I did that. I took the measurements of all of these and I added them together, and it came out to about 177 ounces. So that's about about a gallon and a quart, almost 2 quarts. So that's a good idea, kind of an estimate to let you know how much Pentacryl is on there. But what'll happen is you'll keep applying it until it won't absorb anymore. It kind of just lays on the surface. So that's when you know that it's saturated as well, using the brushing method. One more thing I wanted to show you is we left 2 of these pieces untreated. There's a pine and there's an aspen, and as you can see, it's only been 2.5 days, and just from sitting out, this pine one has already started to crack. So we'll see how that looks in another couple days. So here we are, day 3.5 of treating our cookies. So we're pretty sure everything is completely saturated. So I just wanted to wrap up this section and again give you a summary that these cookies are anywhere from 2 to 3 inches thick, and they've been soaking 3.5 days. So again, we recommend 24 hours per inch of thickness to soak. So we're pretty sure these are completely saturated. And then I wanted to show you too the 2 cookies we did in the smaller tub that we just let wick up. As you can see, they're still nice and dark, which means they're damp with the Pentacryl. So we know that those again are completely saturated. So the brushing method we used on these cookies here, what we did is we took the diameter and the thickness and the type of wood and put it into the wood calculator on our website. And to treat all of these, we came up with about 1.5 gallons. So that's exactly what we have on here, is just shy of 1 gallon and 2 quarts. So a couple things on the brushing method is it's great that we could keep these covered in plastic because in between brushing applications, because we don't want the air to be exposed and start drying these before we're ready. But the downfall to that is if you leave the plastic on too long, it's trapping the moisture in there, which is okay, but we don't want mold to start growing on our wood. So we've got these treated in three days, so now we're gonna go ahead and start drying them. But one thing first I wanted to show you is I just put the last coat of Pentacryl on these, and as you can see, it's still laying on the surface. So that's how we know that these are completely saturated and there's enough Pentacryl in there. So that wraps up the treatment process. Stay tuned for the next section on our video on how to dry these bad boys.